My last.
Alexa read her emails to teachers when she could, yeah.
It's,
There you go.
Yep.
Okay, everyone, it's 7:01. I'm gonna call this meeting of the Ulster Board of Education in order, and we'll start by doing the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we're gonna start something different right away. Rena, you wanna start?
Oh, sure. Yes, thank you. Well, as you all know, sadly, this is Jan's, or excitedly, depending on who you are. This is Jan's last board meeting with us. And there's a tradition on the board of dedicating books to the school library in honor, watch why I triple on my cords. Hold on, I'm working my way over. Dedicating books to the school libraries in honor of departing board members.
Yeah.
And so we have some books that we've selected in your honor that will be dedicated to the libraries.
Oh, that is fantastic. Thank you for doing that.
Let's see what they are.
I'm so thrilled you did this.
They were selected specifically in two themes. Leadership, which we know women in leadership is very important to you.
Right?
And dogs, your love for dogs.
Fearless. Being fearless doesn't mean you're never afraid. Oh boy, that's true. Right? And it's got a dog on the cover. Beautiful. That's beautiful. Tornado, black lab. You can never go wrong with a black lab. Right? Renee Brown, dare to lead. Dare to lead.
Yeah.
Kind of gave that speech to our class today, Kristen, didn't I? I said, we need you, be courageous. Wow, I am so really pleased that these books will go into our libraries. This book is dedicated to Superintendent Jan Pruitt, recognition of her service to the students, parents, and community of Ulster.
You will continue to leave a legacy.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hope the kids enjoy the books. Thank you. That's a lovely tradition to continue. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Karina. Appreciate it. Okay, first item on the agenda is the correspondence. Karen?
We have none this evening. Oh, my.
Okay. Hey, reports from our student board of education representatives.
All right, so to start off with clubs, NHS is having their March community service drive. So this month they're fundraising, or they're collecting cleaning supplies for the less fortunate. So they're collecting things like toilet paper, soap, toothpaste, deodorant, and laundry detergent. And so students will be in the front, in the foyer this week, before school collecting those items. And then the Ecology Club finished cleaning out the greenhouse. And now they're planning on redoing the greenhouse. So they've had a lot of success with that project. And people are really enjoying it. Student government is discussing prom, and they have also invited students to come and give input. I know that there's been a lot of invites for the junior class to come in, and I'm sure the senior class is also receiving a lot of opportunities to give their feedback. And then we just had our second successful blood drive of the year. And this one went very smoothly, and I heard that they were able to reach their goal in donations. And then the health club is working on its spring fundraiser, but they don't have a definite plan quite yet. The chess club is looking for more acknowledgement and more members. And then the Rambler is working on their April Fools edition as well as their regular April edition. For academics, there is the entrepreneurship class is working on starting a business, and trying to raise capital. And then there were three classes that just recently took trips to, or three groups that just recently took trips to New York City. So the current and last year AP US history classes went to New York City to see Hamilton on Broadway. And then the Black and Latino Studies class took a trip to New York City, and then the Encountering Survivors Club also went there. And then I can't believe we forgot to add this to our report, but we have SATs tomorrow. Very exciting. But from what I've heard, people aren't super nervous about them. We've been doing a lot of review at least in the English classes I'm taking and in the math class I'm in, we've been doing a lot of Khan Academy reviews, so I think people are feeling prepared and, I mean, obviously a little nervous, but not too nervous. And then for extracurriculars, the middle school play was the 21st and the 22nd. And then the high school musical went great and everybody had a really good time. It was very impressive. And the kids really loved the meet and greet when they got to go meet the characters. And then NEMPA was the 21st through the 23rd. And certain band and chorus students who auditioned and made it in were able to go to Massachusetts and they were able to put on a concert with students from other schools. And then band students also went and played at a Rotary Club meeting on Wednesday, the 20th. And then for sports, spring sports have started. And everyone's very excited for a great season. Track has a scrimmage this week and their first meet is on April 3rd. And then softball had a scrimmage against New London on March 22nd. And then they have another tomorrow at Valley. And then there is a lot more involvement in tennis than last year. They have a lot of players this year, which is great because it's getting a lot more popular. And same for a lot of other sports.
Great, thank you.
And I wanna, I know we talked, thank you, I mean, we talked at our previous meeting about making sure that we get this stuff up on the website and Facebook and Twitter. And I know that the NEMPA pictures are up, Twitter and Facebook, I believe. And a number of other things. We've been trying to, double that effort, so.
We have the, met with Devin Carney today.
Devin Carney at the middle school.
Tomorrow.
Yes,
Academic.
that was very good too. That was kids winning, our middle school students winning awards for their essay, writing about female leaders during women's history.
Great, thank you, Amelia. Okay, audience of citizens. Correct, we have anybody online.
We do not.
Okay. Moving on the meeting minutes and looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the last meeting. Second. Any question or discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the minutes? Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so moved. The student representative survey, Jan and me.
Yeah. So every year, we actually, first of all, we're thrilled to have student representatives on our Board of Education. And what we do every year is we give them an opportunity to fill out an evaluation in terms of if they feel that their needs have been met serving as student reps. So just to highlight, one of the questions is, did you feel serving as a student representative, the Board of Education was a valuable experience? Yeah. Explain, no, why not? How could the experience be more meaningful? And that's important for us so that we know if we could be interacting more with our student rep, if they feel that they're connecting with their student body. They also, another question is, do you feel like the introduction when you become a student rep that you received represented your experience, and that's important so that they can give us feedback because we value them so much on our board. And other questions here, such as, did you feel your voice as a student representative was respected by Board of Education members and administrators? I'm reading these only because you might not get a chance to take a look. And so one more I'll share is that, could the school have helped you in any way to be better prepared to become student representatives to the Board of Education? And so this will be given to the student reps and they will be able to return them to Trent Gerbers by May 28th. And I'm especially interested to know when you have a minute, how you were able to reach the, sorry, Stephen, if you were able to get feedback from the student body. That's always been for many years a challenge. And so I look forward to your feedback.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Can I ask a question about
Go
that?
ahead, Rena.
I'm gathering that it's probably gonna be a paper survey, is that true? Could I suggest, and maybe you don't have an opinion about this, Amelia, but could it be an electronic survey either through Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey, so it's easier for them to complete you could do a agree, don't agree, neutral, strongly agree. And then they can fill in the short answers. I just feel like that might be easier in a world where we are filled with technology. So just a
I just
suggestion.
have to, Trent, we'll see what we can do, as long as they're able to give back the feedback
Yeah,
that we need to have.
so
I'll touch base.
the survey itself is gonna be emailed to both of our student reps tomorrow morning.
Mhm.
They have the ability to type it in. Nobody's
Oh, good, okay, so
nobody's
it's
ever
fillable.
handwritten it.
Great,
Yeah, so
okay.
Yeah,
They have all been
Yeah.
able to type in their answers.
Okay,
But I would, if the board wants to take a look at the actual questions and the format of the survey, I'm happy to take a
yeah,
look.
maybe in the future could be,
Yeah.
but at least thanks for
Electric scale.
clarifying, because I know we always give it to them electronically and they fill it out.
Yeah.
And that's a good way, so they can
Right.
share with us feedback.
Any other question?
It's two, right? It's two surveys.
No, we have one survey, we have two reps.
Two individuals.
Yeah, two pieces of paper.
Two
to be
responses.
filled out, two responses.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, we have
Yes.
each rep.
okay, I just wanted to clarify
So-
the small sample size.
correct. So my thought was, instead of writing yes in response to a question, it could be a click of a radio button. That's all, just a suggestion, something to consider for the future.
Thanks, Annie.
Welcome.
Hey, we're looking at approval of the increasing educator diversity plan.
Right, and you may remember that back in February, you approved a policy increasing educator diversity plan. And this policy came to us as a template from Shipman and Goodwin to respond to Connecticut Public Act 23-167, Section 10, which requires all boards of education to have an increasing educator diversity plan. We were required before to have a plan that was far less specific. This time, the state gave us a template, and I have to credit Dr. Bachman and Laura Carruthers for the work that you're gonna see, both in the form, but also here in the presentation tonight. We used the education, the EAC, the Equity Action Coalition, as the sounding board for the work to make sure that it wasn't just done in a vacuum. That does include one board member, students, parents, teachers, administrators. And with that, I will turn it over to Laura and Krista.
I'll pass it out. Sure.
So as Jan mentioned, this is,
I know you're gonna read it.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I want to say one more thing. I know you don't typically approve regulations. We're going to use these as the regulations for the policy. The state's requiring us to get the plan approved.
she just did my first one.
I'm sorry, so sorry.
No, that's totally fine. Yes, so this was in response to Public Act 23-167. We had to come up with a plan for how we would increase the diversity of our educators within the district. That included the recruitment, the hiring, as well as the retention of those individuals. We brought in this plan, so we're thinking about how do we get a variety and diverse background of the educators that we are looking to recruit. And then how do we keep those educators within our district? And that really includes all educators that we have, because it is quite intensive and expensive to lose an educator. And we want to make sure that once they are here, that they are supported and part of our system. So we're supposed to have this completed and turned in by actually March 15th, but we have requested an extension, so this will be turned in once it is approved by the Board of Education. It will end up on the district website. So it will also be available on the Department of Education website as well, once it is approved.
So, just so you know, the state guidance and guidelines, and you can actually find their workbook for school districts. Is based kind of on this data. So the top row is the state of Connecticut overall, every district. The blue bars are students of color. The orange bars are educators of color. The data runs from 2009 to this school year. And then underneath is our school district. So while we have seen improvement, we are still, and there's still room for improvement in the state if you're talking about trying to give more commensurate ratios between students and teachers. There's still work to do at both the state and district level. And this demographic, this chart that I made here, shows you the specific breakdown of our student educator demographics for this year in particular, which I think highlights, we know we have, students of color would fall under the Black African American label, but as a note, as always, the numbers are too small, they're hidden, for sake of student privacy, so that's why you don't see any representation on that bar graph for that. These, data points over here about why it's important to have diverse, teaching faculties are taken straight from the Connecticut state document. Again, guiding, these policies and regulations, but all students, studies have shown and lots of studies have shown that all students respond positively to having diverse teaching courses. But the academic gains made by students of color when they see themselves represented in the teaching faculty is really outsized, particularly when you're talking about math and reading scores. It's really important for students to be able to have not only someone who maybe shares some cultural understandings with them that they may not feel otherwise represented, but there is a real connection, when someone who has maybe shared some lived experiences as you can like meet with you one-on-one. And that, all of these data points are in specific relation to like race. But I think Dr. Bachman did a great job on this plan of highlighting that we aren't just talking about race, we're talking about educators from diverse backgrounds. We have a new hire this year who came to teaching kind of sideways, and he works in the manufacturing field, and he has firsthand experience in a field in which he's now teaching. And how great is that for our students who may want to go that route instead of a traditional four-year college? He can speak to kind of that lived experience. So we're talking about things like that too, as well as other identities that educators might carry that might be important and supportive for our students to see represented in a positive light. So the next 4 slides, I believe, are just the breakdown of this. Now, I did spend the most time trying to make this legible from an Excel spreadsheet. I did my best. I yelled at Excel a lot, and I'm sorry if it's still not big enough, but I tried really, really hard. And also, enjoy I think the vintage of this 8.5 by 14 paper that I scrounged. So in short, this vision, this plan is linked directly, to our strategic plan and its vision. We know that we want to prepare students for working in a global society, and having experience and exposure with a global teaching course will help that. And it speaks to the sense of belonging, social emotional learning, and wellness of students. Our theory of action, we want to highlight what we're already doing well. We know Saber's already working on a lot of initiatives tied to this. A lot of this just goes to high quality instruction, right? We want to hire the best candidate for the job. We're just going to think about expanding how we kind of cull candidates and get candidates to us. And the focus on retention as well as recruitment. Teachers are thin on the ground, qualified teachers are thinner on the ground. We want to keep who we've got by putting in really good structures and policies, and we want to maintain anybody new that we get. The team is here. Sure, Superintendent Drezek is very excited to get his name in there in a minute. The biggest needs that we have are time, right? Whether it's the DLT, HR staff, which is more than just Pam Lasordi, HR staff, and the Equity Action Committee.
Not right now, it's not.
Which is the Equity Action Committee, which is more than willing to help take on some of that HR reviewing of document kind of stuff. And we need to prioritize the biggest needs for us fulfilling this plan for the upcoming school year. And we need to make sure that we're distributing responsibilities well, and being mindful of things like our booming HR department, making sure that when we send, I don't know, Pam Lasordi requests for some documents, and we can review them and perhaps update structures, that we give her plenty of time to fulfill that. And don't say we need to do now. So under recruitment, there are 3 stages of the plan. It's recruitment, hiring and selection, and then retention. So under recruitment, we want to increase the percentage of diverse candidates that are applying for positions. This is not about who we hire. This is just, how is our applicant pool looking? Again, highlight Saybrook. This is not the Saybrook that people assume it is now. This is not the Saybrook that I assumed it was when I applied here. Saybrook is a kind of vibrant, multicultural community. Also reaching out to wider applicant pool. We have tons of in-state schools with teacher preparation programs that are in cities and have diverse teacher candidate populations. Reaching out to those places was kind of common sense. Reaching out in our community, we have non-certified staff in the building right now who will be amazing educators, helping mentor them to those non-traditional routes to teacher certification. And, you know, is there someone that you know that would be a great teacher, you know, things like that. And then utilizing our in-house knowledge, we do have teachers from diverse backgrounds, what works for them in Old Saybrook, what drew them to this job, what would help draw more people to the job, what, you know, we have talent that we can ask. So we need HR resources, input from the equity group. And this is also a really great opportunity to create more stuff that brags about how great we are here in Old Saybrook. It's also an opportunity, not just a to-do list of stuff we've got to satisfy for the state. Hiring and selection. So this is where some training and some thoughtful review of structures we already have in place comes in. We need to make sure that no implicit biases are influencing how candidates are perceived at any point of the hiring interview process. There is state training that I believe is mandated for anybody as
Who is part of the interview process.
so what? So there's a awesome video that if you are on the hiring committee, you get to watch that's on unconscious bias. We also are planning on reviewing our screening protocols and hiring procedures to make sure that bias isn't at play in any of those. And we spoke about looking at kind of a bank of interview questions. You know, everybody can name how many people have give me a problem you overcame that, you know, that's like standard one, or tell me about yourself, but we can add to the bank of interview questions some things that like, you know, tell me about what about your life makes you like uniquely suited for this position, that kind of helps get at some of the maybe less traditional skills and values people can bring to this job. Again, time, the biggest resource of all. This requires both equity and the district leadership team. And of course, any policy changes will be coming to you all. And lastly, retention. So this is largely, I think falls on the district leadership team. What kind of environment do we have for both existing staff and new staff? What are we doing to make sure that everyone is feeling seen and valued? So again, looking at exit data and hiring data to find areas of need, like are we missing something, or is there something that's, you know, not going well or going really well that we can replicate in other areas? And developing systems of ongoing support for new teachers. One of my highlights personally of being hired was Matt Walton taking the school bus full of new teachers around a driving tour of Old Saybrook with a crossword to fill out of clues that we found around town, and trying to have the school bus be chased out of Benwick by a small child who said the school bus wasn't allowed there. That was a real highlight, but that also kind of bonded all of the new teachers together. And you know, it gave us something to talk about. I know that certain administrators who maybe are administrating at the middle school right now have monthly meetings with the new staff, answer questions, check in, work on policies and procedures, make sure they know, you know, here's what you do in case of X, here's what you call, here's what you do. And as there's certainly room to expand that to other buildings, to the instructional leadership team model more. I know we do things with them already, but in the larger departments, I think it's harder to have face-to-face time. I see Jeremy Taylor every day, so is everybody else in fine arts line, right? So that's kind of it. Nothing, I think, earth-shattering. Are there any questions? Yeah.
So I have 3 questions. For the 3.7% of diverse educators that we have, are they equitably distributed across the 3 schools? Are they concentrated in any one school?
Well,
They're in all 3 schools.
they're in all 3 schools, and when you're talking about distribution of educators, you also, right, it kind of comes as positions open up, right?
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
you know, I do know that if you were to look to our foreign language department, that would be perhaps where you would find a higher concentration,
Yeah.
just kind of naturally. But yeah, you know, certainly this is the idea of this, I believe, if I'm the State Department of Education, is to make sure that all of our kind of mental frameworks of how we are considering and conceiving of hiring and retaining educators is not outdated.
Right. And I really appreciate your approach to diversity, right? That it's everything below the iceberg, then, you know, underneath. That it's not necessarily race or color,
It's-
ethnicity.
It's so much more. than
There's so much more than that. There's different backgrounds and things. So I think that that's great.
When I was hired, I had kids write letters to me that they didn't know that women could be band directors, right? Because that had never been part of their mental model, right? And so it's sometimes, and you know,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just seeing like, oh, right, I never thought that we could have a female shop teacher, right? Not that we
Yeah.
have one,
But that's the impact that that has on the
Yeah.
students, right? That they
Yeah.
see somebody like themselves and they think of different possibilities. My last question is one, related to, like, what are the schools? I think broadening, recruiting like different schools that have a higher diverse, teacher, student population, right? Where they're going for their, degree in education. Are the colleges, right, is Eastern, Southern, are they, right, because you can only hire from the pool that's available.
Correct.
And I mean, you can broaden, again, you can go to schools in Massachusetts or New York that might have a more diverse pool, but are our state schools doing anything to increase their population of?
I mean, I'm not a commissioner of education for the
Right.
state of any of these colleges. I do know that there are both state level and nationwide level initiatives to, get the educator incoming pre-service teacher pool back up, but also to diversify who our pre-service teachers are. At the state level, I know from taking coursework that it's built into CCSU's coursework, and I would imagine that being in New Britain, they are trying to pull from that population. I don't know anybody.
I can say a little bit
Yeah.
about that. So, in our state there, and I imagine in others as well, there's a large push for first-time college students to get them into the university programs and then get them tracked into something that interests them. So that's just getting students into the university. We also in this state have a number of pathway programs to bring either paraeducators into teaching. And there seems to be a higher concentration of more diverse candidates amongst paraeducators, especially in your large urbans. Also, for different districts, larger districts in particular can take advantage of this to actually start with their high school students as a pipeline to education.
Right.
So, yeah, I think a number of efforts have been put in place, and this is part of the State Department of Education strategic plan. And UConn does recruiting, like we could attend UConn recruiting if we had enough jobs to make it worth,
Right, yeah.
going there for the day, and that gives you an opportunity. And there are some minority publications, so you could hit that population with advertisements.
I also know because I subscribe to the newsletter, the White House, like the National Department of Education actually has a whole initiative about diversifying the workforce and supporting diverse educators, and they have like separate branches actually for like Black educators and Latino educators, and I get both newsletters, and Miguel Cardona, of course, is
Great.
from Connecticut, so it's nice. So there are nationwide incentives for colleges to try and pull in some, and there's also national, is it statewide or national-wide, the FAFSA requirement, that's new. Is that a state thing? Yeah, so there's a new.
But they're actually gonna delay that.
Oh, well,
right?
of course they are, because rolling out a nationwide project requiring every high schooler to
Yeah.
complete a FAFSA form before they
Have
graduate.
this whole system crash on them.
What? No, this would never do that, but, so there are things that they're trying, right, if you can, just like having a statewide SAT day, if you can help kids sit down, do your FAFSA, figure it out with your parents, let's jump over the hurdles together, especially for first-time college students. That's a huge hurdle right there, because that answers, how am I gonna pay for my first semester?
There's also legislation that's gone out to the full General Assembly now to eliminate the initial certification fee. So if you make it through the program, you don't have to take the license for the initial. Once you
Right.
get a job
Yeah.
and you're going over to professional.
Right.
you-
I cried when I had to make my initial license payment as a four just graduated college kid.
Yeah, yeah.
It was tough.
We're just gonna say that for many years, Saybrook has always wanted to bring diversity into its staff. It's just been a challenge, just in terms of housing, transportation, but the initiative has always been there. The other piece is that for our students, we have a very robust cultural arts program. So when we have cultural arts programs, we're exposing students to people from a variety of backgrounds and their talent, so they get that exposure. And that's important as well.
I have a couple questions. I don't see anywhere in there where you talked about it in your presentation, but there's nothing in it that references our high quality learning or well-qualified candidates. I understand that we're looking for diverse. I think that's great, but we also want to make sure that they match written word matches our actual goals, where we want high quality learning, where we want, you know, to ensure that we're providing the best for students. And then what does success look like? What are there metrics that we're gonna be tracking that this is working? You know, are we trying to meet a certain,
There are no quotas. So in
But
terms
the
of,
state does keep track of metrics for how many candidates we interview and also how many diverse candidates are successful.
Right.
That is tracked.
right, but we as a district do not have like if we don't get 3 Latino candidates for this job, we're gonna reopen it. We are looking for the best candidate. So this plan is focusing more on how we can widen our applicant pool. The way and the structure of the guidance given to us in crafting this plan had nothing to do with like, that's not what the state's looking for in this plan. We have our own criteria when we hire someone. That's the success part, right, of your question. So I have been on hiring committees as just a teacher, so administrators, please feel free to jump in. But there's a whole screening process that every applicant goes through of just the review of resumes. Oof, that took a while. And then once you get to the interview round, we have a whole interview protocol. That's one of the things that's going to be reviewed to make sure that that's free from bias, but we are not eliminating any rigor from that. That's always been extremely rigorous. As someone who did a first round interview over Zoom at, I think, 6 a.m. from Colorado and then flew out for the second round. Is that speaking to your question, at least in part?
yes and no, but I understand they're two different things. I think we're getting,
Right,
I
like,
think the state wants, hey, that you're trying.
the state wants a document that says, this is how we are going to make sure we are thinking about this, but this is not a reflection of our.
I want to make sure that
Right,
the Old Saybrook school system is putting forth the best
Yes.
candidates, regardless of anything.
absolutely. That's why I said the focus on this is about widening our pool of applicants and maintaining the good, high quality staff that we already have here. Like, are we retaining the high quality staff we have? And when we have an opening, can we widen our pool and maybe pull in some less traditional candidates that we would normally get? That-
Yeah, can you give us a little bit more information, Laura, about maybe I should say the expected reporting as a follow-on of this, because I'm understanding that the legislation is requiring us to submit a plan to the state of Connecticut and possibly either the Old Saybrook Board of Education, I shouldn't say that, Old Saybrook District or the Department of Education for Connecticut would post this on a
Both will post
website
it.
here somewhere.
Yes, they have to be posted by both organizations.
That's part of the
Of the
requirements that the legislation's bringing about. Okay, so I can go to
You should be able
the
to
state of
compare our
Connecticut
plan to any
site
other
and
district.
look at what East Lyme's plan might be, or
Yeah.
what New London's plan might be. Because I'm assuming they're all gonna be different and tailored toward the individual communities.
To some extent, if you've read the guiding questions for this, it's actually kind of open. Prescriptive, but open. It's clear what they're trying to, and they're trying to make sure the state has a unified framework. That's really all this is.
Okay.
Understanding.
Is there anything in there about future reporting requirements in terms of the data that we spoke of earlier, where
Right, like.
we're
what's-
going, we did 3 interviews for teachers this year, and the pool looked like this, and they had certain categories, I'm sure.
It's already a requirement.
category.
We already have to
It
do
is,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
We have to, and the state collects data, like all those graphs I got from like the open public facing side of EdSite, which reports, you go to edsite.gov. It's all school statistics for the entire state. And you can look at any demographic breakdown of any district that you want. It's hours and hours of data.
Okay, so in terms of the reporting that we already do, this is just bringing a global view and making sure that the administrators are thinking of this as they go through the interviewing process.
Right.
And then they report whatever happens to come out of that, and making sure that there is a process behind it.
Right, because if you are, like, if we are speaking, if I am an educator of color, there are also studies that say, like, I am more likely to be drawn potentially to serve my community, whether that's in New Haven or whether that's in my suburb that I grew up in, right? It could be either. But if you are not from a town and you are a person of color, you are less likely to apply for a teaching job there. Kind of, right? So it's making sure, like, you know, I interviewed here from Colorado, but I'm from Connecticut. I was just in grad school, right? So like, it was weirder when I interviewed for jobs in Colorado if I didn't know I was planning on staying there. It's about making sure we are having as diverse of a pool as possible. Especially in light of teacher shortages, I think it's prudent just in general to make sure you have a wider applicant pool, you might get a surprise, really high quality applicant out of it.
Okay, if I can just project one more time. By the same token is and maybe Jan can answer this also, knowing what she knows about the hierarchy in the Department of Education, our Department of Education doing anything to promote more people to become teachers? I think you touched on it a little bit
Yeah,
earlier.
some of the programs I was talking
If there's a
about.
shortage all across the board, we
Yeah.
want to get as many people in there as possible.
Yep, and I know that, you know, some of our districts in the state are taking, you know, the matters into their own hands. They're flying to Puerto Rico. They are going to your traditional, Black, African-American universities and recruiting there. So depending upon the size of your district and the demographics of your population, you can do something that's true. But the state has been supporting, they've been running their own programs and supporting, kind of local and homegrown programs too in some of the bigger districts.
That's where some of our in-house staff, right, like we have a former student who's in school for music education right now, and he's a person of color, and I would love it if when he finished and there was a job opening, if he applied, right? Not even to say that he even gets an interview, but how great of an experience would it be to see that resume come across, right? And just the same, I am sure that if there's an opening in your jobs, whatever they are during the day, and you happen to have a friend who works in a related field or the same field but for a different company, might be like, hey, there's a job opening, like, or hey, boss, I know this great candidate, like. We have in-house knowledge too, and not just beyond what works for us as a district and what doesn't in terms of hiring and retaining.
Question by Steve, then Kelly.
So my question is, we have a 4,000 series document now, which is our diversity plan. What is the actual document that is gonna be submitted? This is the actual document, and this is gonna be posted on,
Our website and the state, this is their template, this is the state's template we get to use.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
horrible design. Okay.
You should have heard the words I said to myself.
In the education field, are there similar like societies that they have in like other fields? For example, in engineering, they have like, because obviously they're trying to draw engineers of color, women into the field. Are there similar things? So like in this plan, we have going to college career fairs and those types of things, but I'm wondering if we're tapping into like those professional societies, if they exist.
I'm not aware of one. That doesn't mean they don't exist. I'm
We have a national with state chapters like music.
Yeah.
Educators Association, but that's not a real problem for us in Saybrook. I don't know. I don't anticipate any openings
Yeah.
upcoming, but I don't know of equivalent organizations. It's like the National Arts Organization that actually encompasses all of fine arts.
Yeah.
And there are legislative like lobbying bodies, so that's not quite. And there's not like honor societies for education are really just like or the court at graduation. It's not like an ongoing, you get the magazine, there's alumni events kind of situations.
That's a shame that there's not like opportunities or even like within the colleges, like certain groups of students that.
Probably is.
There is, I just looked them up, there's something for Latinos, so I'm sure there is for others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so-
Right, so if you look at the demographics in this room, that might be why we're unaware.
That's
Yeah.
right. We
Yeah.
never accessed it ourselves.
I mean, I know that like in other capacities, so like in the sciences, like they're actively recruiting into the sciences, into the society tracks to be able to do interviews at different events that they might hold, to be able to recruit, to be able to make sure that the postings go up like on the society websites or through the mailing list and that type of thing, so that they can increase their reach like naturally to their target audience. So it just might be something to consider.
Yeah, and Jan spoke to that with the publications, yeah, I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and I have to say, I'm sitting here listening to you, Callie, and I'm thinking, we haven't had a significant teacher shortage in a long time.
Yeah.
It might go, don't quote me on this, but last time I heard people talking about teacher shortages was pre-Vietnam. And like to this extreme. And so we're a little late to the game with some of these ideas that you're talking about. All of a sudden, we're looking around and we're starting to say very loudly, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
We have a pipeline that is drying up. And we need to be doing more creative things. Some of the things that they're trying to do at the state level, and I'm sure at the national level too, although I'm not as aware, is dropping some of the things that are making it so hard. In our profession, the certification hoops you have to jump through are off-putting, expensive, confusing. And then you go to take your portable certification, you think it's portable from one state to another, and they're like, oh, no, we don't recognize that certification here. And sometimes you have to start all over again, and they won't recognize something you've done in another country, where, as you said, we get a lot of our world language teachers. We're pushing really hard, with the state. As a matter of fact, I have a meeting tomorrow to talk to somebody about this, to try to get some of these certification hurdles that are not demonstrating improved quality of candidates.
Right.
Just get rid of them.
We have
They're
enough-
making somebody happy, but it's not the candidates, it's not the school districts.
I will say, I know of some schools that are considering, and these are not schools in Connecticut, that are considering lower tuition or some kind of payment during student teaching placements. That's often a big hurdle once you get to your junior and senior year of college is, if you look at internships in other fields, like an engineering internship,
Or
over the summer, you can get paid a livable wage
Yeah.
in 2 months of work as an internship, but student teaching internships can be a whole semester where you're paying full tuition.
Some of them are a year.
Right, well, mine, yeah, and you work a full-time job and are paying tuition, but you're not getting any payment, and you can't also work a part-time job. In many places, they have requirements that say you can't hold down your campus part-time job while you're doing your student teaching. And so that's a real financial burden for lots and lots.
Turns
and
off the
lots of
second
places.
career people.
Yeah.
Because they're not gonna not have money
Yeah.
for a year. It turns off people who don't have parents to support them while they're in college. A lot has to
There's
change.
sure. I did have a thought, and this is, might not be the place to bring it up, but I went to my undergrad in upstate New York, so I did a lot of initial interviewing at job fairs where you would get a big rural district together and they would go to Ithaca, Syracuse, wherever, a kind of bigger city. And it would be a lot of rural school districts would kind of bring representatives to do some screening interviews or collect resumes. That might be something that for our smaller districts where we don't have a lot of openings at once, maybe we get a crew together from some of the shoreline, the small towns, or our athletic conference.
Yeah, we can go to at least to Yukon one.
Right, yeah, maybe maybe that's a more cost efficient way of
No, it's a great.
collaborating. Yeah.
So these, I will say the one thing that you have going for you as a district is you do have a very robust and very orderly process for screening candidates. Now we have to go back and look at that process with an eye to, if there are any bias built into it, because there may very well be. But that you're starting from a place that is not scattered. It's not, hey, I got a buddy, you wanna hire him, but there are places that function that way, and we do not function that way. Everybody goes before a team of people. There's no opportunity for one person to skew the whole process.
Is there any information that we could put up front, like on our hiring websites or with our postings that might answer some of the upfront, like worrisome, frequently asked questions for candidates that, you know, like, does my certification transfer, does it, you know, like those types of things?
I knew the
Like-
answers to all of it.
No,
I
right,
don't
and
know.
I mean,
I
like,
don't understand half of it.
but for certain things, or, you know, like, are there paid internships, like in your, like, whatever it is?
Yeah.
Obviously, this is.
Yeah,
I don't know all
yeah,
the ins and outs, but.
yeah, it's something that we consider. We usually work with the universities on that, again, typically state of Connecticut
Yeah.
universities, but you know, we've had a relationship with Fairfield where we had paid interns here. We paid part of their tuition instead of giving them a salary. We've done that with other groups. Our Central Connecticut cohorts, building administrators have been that. So we've done a lot of little homegrown things, but that's not a bad idea. I'm not sure that we have a lot to say right now, but we could certainly build that.
And I think that's built in, I took a note on that too. I think that's built into when we review kind of what we're already doing, like I think one of the first big projects kind of make sure that whoever is going to review these documents has a holistic view of like kind of the process and the messaging, like every teacher knows CT Reap is where you go to look for jobs in Connecticut, and there's Reaps for other states, and there are other places that you may also look for job postings, but teachers don't go to Indeed really, you know?
Yeah.
And there may be some things that we could put into statements that I'm also happy with.
One last thing I want to say is that, I went to a training not that long ago, and I came back and said, Trent, one of the things that I am told will attract a more diverse group of people is that your website represents a more diverse group of people. And so that has been an effort of ours to make sure that all of our children are there. And so that is one way, when people see a story that looks like their story, conversely, then they say,
Mhm.
oh, I think I could apply that.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I was going.
Oh.
I ask you the question about our marketing.
Yeah.
Do we visually, do we represent the diverse staff, even though it's a limited number? Are they represented? So people of different cultures and backgrounds can see that, even though, as you said earlier, I think there's a misconception about Old Saybrook in this little vibrant town, and it is changing. We just have to get that word out in our recruitment efforts.
Yeah, that's in the plan, and I mean, again, the plan is designed to be vague in that it gives every district enough room to adjust as needed without having to send updates to the state and the State Department and approve the new adjustments. But I do think we also have to, when we have a small minority population of teachers of minority backgrounds, we want to make sure that we're also not tokenizing them, right? Like, I don't want to pull out, Bob and his rainbow flag for every June Pride Month event, right? Because that would start to send a different message that would actually turn candidates off.
So if I understand.
Just gonna ask you, Jen, so you just said there's a training now for people who are gonna be on an interview committee?
Yes, pretty much.
So anyone that's on an interview committee,
Has to go for the fight.
regardless of what that,
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So we're looking for board approval tonight, correct?
Yes.
So we do this.
And what will happen is if we get board approval, this gets submitted to the state, and the state will send it back with either their stamp of approval or required revisions by May.
Okay.
Make a motion to,
Let's see.
make a motion to, accept the plan, diversity plan template as presented tonight.
Second, please, by Jane. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the equity plan?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? No moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know you were.
That's executive session. No one keep waiting. At the next three, go very fast.
Okay. The deposit account resolution Essex Savings Bank.
I just want to say the next three topics are all about getting the right signatures on our documents. You at one time approved me, now you're going to be, and then you approved Pam, now you're gonna be approving Chris, and 6 weeks you're gonna be approving Chris. So you'll be doing this a lot.
We tried to get all three together this time.
Yeah.
So we did try to do that.
All right, Pam, take it away. Just brief explanation for those.
Okay, so the first one is the deposit account resolution for Essex Savings Bank. That's for our food service checking account and our 3 student activity accounts. They're separate accounts held with Essex Savings. Essex Savings requires a board resolution to change the signatory on those accounts. And then for us to have Karen sign that document attesting that you all have agreed to have, in essence, a second signer, because it's never a good idea to have just one of us. So then it would be Krista and I at this
So
point.
you're approving Chris, that you would be approving
Approving
Chris.
Krista.
That's for all three.
This
Do
is
you want me,
for-
do you want me to discuss?
No, I think you
One
can
at a
do them
time?
three separately.
Right.
Yeah.
I just had a quick question on some of these. They say Krista Bachman, interim superintendent, and some say it and some don't. So do we keep it?
I don't think it matters so
I
much
just
as
was
the
asking,
name.
that's
Yeah,
all.
just the name.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, that was kind of, I had a similar question in that, do we, right,
Because she won't
That's all.
sign interim superintendent, she'll just sign Krista Bachman. You can
Okay,
say it
that's
any way you like, interim.
okay,
No, I understand.
and so somebody will remember that this needs to happen when Chris. comes
Oh, yeah.
in.
Yeah, it's already on. It's already on.
It's on the
Do
agenda.
that.
Okay.
We already have the form
Yeah.
pre-ready to go and.
Make a motion that we have the resolution as written in the draft document for Krista Bachman to be added.
Second by Kelly. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Opposed? Abstention? So moved. Thank you.
Okay.
Child nutrition.
The child nutrition, so the next one is for our food services free and reduced meal program. We need to have 2 authorized signers. Krista would be replacing Jan as an authorized signer.
And you'll need a new code, by the way.
All right, for Trevor. I'll go
Yeah,
this
we'll
way.
need a login and password.
I was just gonna make a motion, designate Dr. Krista Bachman as the authorized signer of the ED 099 agreement for child nutrition programs on behalf of the Old Salem Public Schools.
Second.
Second by Karen. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Abstentions? So moved.
And the third one.
And the third one is so that we fill our 2 spots available on Eastern Connecticut Health and Medical Cooperative voting spots. Again, Krista would be replacing, Jan's spot for representation for Old Saybrook as part of the cooperative.
Make a motion.
Second. Steve. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Okay, budget update. Jen?
Yep, so just one more time, I'm mentioning that the Board of Finance, I think Pam and Karina were there, did approve our budget without making any changes to it, our board's budget, so I'm really pleased about that. As you know, you've got, you approved the budget prior to that, making one internal change, moving $5,000 from one place to another.
Jen, could you, talk about that a little bit, the $5,000?
Yes, so, the night that you approved the budget, prior to doing it, you moved $5,000 out of 810 athletics account. 810 is the number, and you moved it into an account for water for the fields. We felt we might have been a little bit short there anyway, and so that's where that money went. And that $5,000 had been a new item in the 810 account, and that was to pay for, potentially pay for, athletes playing for other teams.
Okay, Karen?
Yeah, so just on that note, I'm concerned about, because I don't feel like we had a full board discussion on this, and it actually came to resolution in terms of what we're doing for students who choose to participate in sports not in our athletic program. And I'm not in favor of supporting that. I just want to make that noted. I think it's a financial responsibility that we'd be asking our taxpayers to support, and we have no idea what it could actually ultimately cost or lead to. It could be minor, it could be huge. So I think that's part of the conversation that we started at one point, but didn't really finish or get a consensus on.
Well, I know that for everyone who was here that night, there was a vote to move that money. And I hear what you're saying about this issue. It's it is not necessarily limited to CIAC sports, which means it could be dressage next year, and certainly Old Saybrook Public Schools is not in a position to be able to support that sort of thing. So I understood the board's position. I understand what it means for us this year, although there is no money set aside in the budget this year. And I hear clearly from the board's decision about money for next year that we are not in favor of supporting that, and so that will not take place.
Okay.
Jane?
I was under the impression the reason that we, did not move it forward as a line item to support, the cooperative sports, I think was the name, is that correct? Was because we didn't have a policy in place to manage how we would distribute that, which I understand that would result in a lot of confusion if we didn't have a policy. I don't know that bars us from moving forward if we wanted to at a later time. If we have board members who want to support athletes who are pursuing specific, and maybe we could outline specific sports that we're not able to accommodate due to our declining enrollment. We may not be able to have a field hockey team in the future, perhaps, or a softball team or a baseball team, whatever. So if we are unable to have, because of the enrollment decline, if we're not able to have as many choices as we have in the past for student athletes, that's a concern for me, that we're limiting the potential of children in Old Saybrook who want to play sports that we can't offer at the high school. So I didn't realize that it was specifically cutting that as a topic, and I don't know if there's opportunities to discuss this further and later on in the year. how we can come up with a policy and, put scope on it so that we could offer, families some support if they had athletes wanting to play things that we can't handle as, part of our high school.
Would it be possible to create some kind of committee that had the ability to look at a policy like that, maybe involve, Mr. Saunders and maybe some representatives of the community? To talk about, and I agree, for me, it was, we don't have a policy, like, well, let's get cart before the horse kind of thing. Let's figure out what we think the Old Saybrook Public Schools should do. So the question is, how would we go about creating a committee to look into developing a policy related to this specific action, sports?
Before that question's answered, let me provide some context. Outside of the work of this board, there was an investigation done into this situation. And the result of that investigation was, the superintendent's office was advised to create language that would go into, I'm assuming, they didn't say where, but that we should create language to identify for families what sports we offer and what cooperatives we have in place, so that it would be spelled out ahead of time, instead of having to deal with, individual requests as they come up. So that is going to take place as just a practice that it has to be done because we've been directed to do it.
Again, I just think it's imperative that, because I think parents are unaware of are there funds available, are there not? I think there's the equity question certainly comes up, but if we can have a statement, whether it's in the athletic handbook somewhere, so there's no expectation, whatever direction we go in, the parents understand that if they're choosing a sport that may be very costly, that we don't have as a program, it may not be funded.
Yeah.
That's a decision you make as a
And-
family.
Right,
Limiting access.
This is sort of one of those unintentional fallout from our desire to provide. Remember, we're so focused on 100% of our kids involved with extracurricular activities, 6 through 12. We came up with all kinds of creative ways to make that happen. Some of our cooperatives, our team cooperatives came from that. Some came from just, the need to fill out our ranks amongst the teams. And so now we find ourselves at a crossroad where the language we have in place is not enough. And we have to create better, more specific language for this situation.
Right, so I'm not sure if we are getting back to, coming together, whether it's a subcommittee that needs to meet a couple times to develop some language. Because what I'm concerned about is when we talk about, certainly the horse thing, the equestrian, I don't see that as a normal sport for high school athletics. Maybe it is out west, but I think in New England, although we do have a lot of horses here in Connecticut, that's not something that's typically on the shoreline. But when you talk about swimming, that's a normal kind of sport, in my opinion. When you talk about field hockey, that's a normal kind of sport in New England, not where I'm from, but in New England.
I would think you would want to say CIAC sanctioned sport.
Right, yeah, so exactly. And I don't know, I have no idea how big that list is, but.
And I think this language, I honestly think this is an administrative thing that needs to be handled. I think Brendan can put a team together. You can include a, board member if somebody wants to be on it. But athletes, parents, and you have to meet a couple times to come up with this language. Somebody else has the language. This is not hard work. It's just a case of getting it in our publications and getting it done, which we have to do.
And I think then what that does is eliminates the need to create a secondary policy that
Right.
says, because this language will drive, here are the sports that Old Saybrook supports and participates in as defined by CIAC rules.
Yeah.
And anything else, it doesn't prevent access. What it says is, these are the sports that our school supports. If you want to participate in other sports, they can be found other places,
Right.
but it defines.
Right.
And so then it just doesn't, it eliminates the need to say, and for all you others, here's our,
We're gonna negotiate.
we'll negotiate.
can't-
There's
we
no
can't-
negotiation.
We can't do
Right.
that one.
Right.
Yeah, you're
And-
100%
yeah.
right.
All of our sports are currently listed in the handbook, the ones that we offer on campus.
Sure.
And then established college.
Honestly, there's probably a few paragraphs about
In the cooperatives. as
how
well.
we do this and what we don't do.
And to put a really positive spin on all that, we have 196 high school kids signed up for high school sports. So that's over 50%.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Do you count swimmers and hockey players in that? So those are
This is
counted.
just for spring sports.
Okay, so those are, they're representing Old Saybrook.
They are
In that.
counted in the number, yeah,
Okay,
total athletes.
okay.
Just,
And we may or may not be supporting them financially.
just for the, I'm looking at the CIAC list of sports right now and, boys hockey is recognized by the CIAC, but I don't.
Girls hockey is not.
Girls hockey
It's
is not.
It's not a CIC. Nope.
They're hockey with you. Right.
Yeah, girls hockey is not. And so I do think that, that's a great place to start with what is CIAC? That's what we get involved in, we also, but we've got to be careful because we also have crew. Right? And some towns have fencing. And so whatever language gets developed needs to consider all of that and codify it appropriately and then share it back with the board. And so you can see where that ended.
And
So Jenny suggested perhaps a board member or two, so again, it's.
I mean, yeah, let Brenda put together a team and invite a board member or two to join so that you can help tell the story when it comes back to the board.
again, crew is not a CIAC support.
That was my point.
Yeah, yeah, okay,
We have to be very
yeah.
careful because we do participate
We
in some
do just say,
CIAC,
exactly.
but we actually have teams. We've developed multi-student teams that are with multi-student teams from another district. The other thing is that when we enter into these casual relationships with other districts, saying, hey, we got this kid, can you help us out? She'd really like to play. Brendan has connections. We've been doing this, trying to get kids connected. Well, they might have a process where all their athletes pay $1,800 to play that sport. We can't change that.
Right.
We can't weigh in on that. All we're saying is here, we're helping you get the access. We can't help you with anything else. Completely understood that. That was very clear to me.
If anyone would like to be on that committee, if they want, just shoot me an email and I'll put a list of it.
Not me, no. You're gonna say,
No, sorry, don't want to be on
No, I was
that.
gonna be like, with the new superintendent coming in, they'll be able to oversee that and be able to support that.
Right, and like with everything, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course,
Say that
yeah.
you have-
Brendan will keep the superintendent informed.
Exactly.
Like, one thing, so just to close the loop here, I don't think the policy committee is getting involved in this. We've got enough policies, and we've already got policies concerning the athletic manual and, or handbook, I should say. So I think we're okay, but if Brendan and his team want to come up with some solutions for the handbook, that would be terrific.
Yes.
That'd be perfect. School resource officer.
Yes, so this was a request of a board member to include this on a board agenda, and I'm just gonna provide an update tonight and tell you that I already spoke with Chris Drezick about this. And he has already worked on this in his district, so he's happy to take over this work. Last year, the state legislators, this a mandate, and that mandate was that we had to have an MOU with our school resource officers or the provider of our school resource officers, which is Old Saybrook Police Department. We have that. And you might remember a number of years ago, we had started rewriting it. We were working with the board's attorney. We sent it over to the police department. It came back, it changed. We kept going back for the editing. By the time it finally got whittled down, Ann Littlefield said, the one you have now serves fine. Issue that we're changing this so much. It does in the current agreement we have with police where I talk about the role of the school resource officer in very general terms. It talks about what they do and what they don't do. What the legislators want from us is specific language about what do we do? What does a school resource officer do vis-a-vis physical interactions with students, restraint, that sort of thing. And they want us to spell out exactly what the expectation is for the school resource officer. I didn't put that on a fast track because we don't have those. Our school resource officers are never the arresting officers. In a crisis situation, obviously, yes, of course, they would intervene if, administrators couldn't calm the situation down, which has fortunately not happened here. A school resource officer would in their capacity of keeping children safe. do that work. Matter of fact, our current agreement talks a lot about school safety and keeping kids and staff safe, and it does not talk a lot about those interactions. But these are police officers. These are not, in some places, your school resource officers are armed guards. They're private citizens. In some places, school resource officers are the employees of the school district. In our place, in our school, they are police officers and they have their own code of conduct about when they put their hands on people. So I didn't see this urgency. The other thing I'll share with you is there's another piece of legislation up in Hartford that may or may not make it through. That is actually requiring superintendents to report to boards of education every incident where a student is arrested in our schools. By and identify them in ways that in our district would allow you all and the general public to know exactly who we're talking about. It's race, it's grade, it's gender. And you can guess that there might be some people that would fit into specific demographics and you know darn well what we're talking about. So we're kind of fighting back on that. We don't mind saying, here's a summary report. It's not like there's.
Like the incidents
Yeah.
themselves, rather than the
Yes,
individual.
yeah, and at a certain time in the year, during the course
Right.
of this year, but to do it as it occurs is, as far as I'm interpreting it as a FERPA violation.
Yeah.
Really violating privacy. So I think we let the dust settle on that, that'll be over the beginning of May. And since Chris Dresnick already has the experience of writing it, I've got a folder to him. If I get, I took some things away from him, he gets to keep this one. But I think that we are, I think he'll be in good shape and he can work with Krista.
And our MOU is current. now.
Our MOU is
Okay, good.
current, yep,
Excellent.
Thank you, Jen.
you're welcome.
So we're moving on to reports by administration. Do we have any questions for Heston on the Goodland School?
Real quick, exciting about presentation from the Department of Transportation. Is that Connecticut Department of Transportation?
Yes, it was.
The Sherbrooke Middle School, any questions for Dr. Bachman?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say I attended Frozen and that was a very nice production and it was really cute to see all the kids up there. And it was really my first time seeing, my son's in 5th grade and recognizing he really gets to see a wide range of, or work with a wide range of ages, 5th through 8th doing the play. So it was great.
Next word, stage crew academy.
Yeah.
I
I heard all about it.
One of the most diverse as far as age and gender casts that we've had in a long time. So I think that was really beneficial to all of the students that were involved.
Really good.
And I know I'm not Dr. Bachman, but I was tangentially helping out with some of the sound stuff. We got a new soundboard, which is beautiful and lovely. And so I was helping out a little bit with that. And the way the kids were helping each other, like the makeup crew, the costume crew, like everyone was very, very sweet, very supportive. It was really nice.
Very well done.
Also want to highlight the NELMS Award on the second page, that also went out through our social media. That was a pretty prestigious award that was won there, and very proud of them.
Question, Krista, just in for a few minutes. It's exemplary because it did an integrated unit. Does that mean that staff, were part of, language arts and history? I just was curious.
Yes, so what it incorporated multiple subject areas as well as multiple 21st century skills into the content that they were teaching within that class. And it was very student driven. So when NELMS came originally to do the site observation for the Spotlight Award, one of the things that we showcased was the Old Saybrook Studies course. And on that, they suggested that the teachers present that for this particular award, and they submitted it and they won for this particular course as well.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Jane,
Just a quick question for, just, because I'm not familiar, what science classes are offered for the 8th graders currently?
It's more like all of the grades are more of a general science, so it follows the NGSS bundles, and they're placed throughout 6th, 7th, and 8th grade based on the appropriate levels of the kids.
NGSS?
And DSS.
That means, you know, that.
Oh, gosh.
No,
that's
no,
all right.
Science.
Oh, I knew that. What?
It's the next generation science thing.
Okay. Yes, you got it.
Okay, for the Old Saybrook High School, do we have any questions, for Mr. Anastasio? I
I had
think,
a question, but congratulations, Joe, on getting kids involved in Hartford and student government and working collaboratively with other shoreline communities and having them come up with bills and know how the system works.
Yeah, that Corinne Torrey's kind of been the champion of that, and it's been great to see the kids so excited about getting involved, not only at our level, at the school level, our student government, but taking it beyond, you know, the walls of the school, which is right in line with our strategic plan.
yeah,
Joe, I'd like to give a shout out to you as well as Karina, I forget her last name.
Karina using? Yeah.
Yes, there was a program on Monday that students went to the Middlesex Healthcare Facility in Westbrook. My daughter happened to be a part of it. She got to suture a pig's foot. But being shown a variety of nursing programs, the exposure, the opportunity for any grade level to go. It's one of those things that I found incredibly valuable, just in terms of giving students experience, careers, and getting their brains working. Okay, this might be something I want to do.
That's the point, exactly.
That's the goal.
hey, do we have any questions, for Sarah, for curriculum, I'm sorry, for Cree, and for curriculum instruction and assessment?
Bree, there was something you wanted to add this evening, I think.
Excuse me. So we have been working with Nick Saganella in the CTE program that we provided that presentation to you, I believe last month. We were looking to move forward with one of the programs that we had illustrated to the board, the Go Baby Go program, which also provides a tech ed central credit. And we are hoping to formalize a partnership between Old Saybrook Public Schools and Central Connecticut State University, so we could move forward with that plan.
So they're looking at that, they are, they were looking for partners and they explored, met with and interviewed a number of partners. And Central One, they think it's the most focused project that will engage our kids the most. And so we're looking to move forward with that. We wanted you to know which one we had chosen.
This is tech ed for high school tech ed?
Yeah, it's high school only, Kareem, this particular program?
For Go Baby Go, yes. And it also aligns with a lot of the feedback that we got from students where they were looking for a very hands-on program. And this one is extremely hands-on. And also it has that the real world capabilities because they are designing a vehicle for a child with a disability. So that you get both hands-on and practical.
Jen?
Yeah, so my older son did a Go Baby Go program, pretty interesting, kind of start to finish by himself during COVID. So you know, if you're looking for anybody to give any examples or something, he might be available to come talk to everybody. It was a pretty interesting process to watch and see take place in my garage.
That would
Quite a few cars and got to see those handed off to different kids. So it was a very rewarding experience.
And that would be awesome to have someone with a firsthand account of working from start to finish with something like that.
Yeah.
I think
Just real quick, can you tell me just about Chris Lehman from the Educator Collaborative? He came to the district?
Yeah, so we have been working with Chris Lehman since the summer, as we were working and transitioning to the pilot for the ARC Core Literacy Program. He has been helping us balance the aspects of not going too far into this program as if it were a scientific study and really trying to measure out what reasonable fidelity means inside of this while keeping our same high quality practices, but also considering the balance with the new research and everything that's coming out with the science of reading.
Thanks so much.
Okay, so moving on, student services, we have questions for Sarah, I'm sorry, for operations, facilities and finance for Pam. Eileen?
Something, Pam, I think you mentioned under special education, regular education off budget. Did we have students, it said something about, we have tuitions coming in from other districts for programs in Old Saybrook.
In the past,
Right, what were they? Do you know what programs they were tuitioning in for?
special education.
No, I know, but anything specific, like specific, like
No.
sometimes.
No, and that would be another one if we said that at a meeting. Could get very identifiable.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it would be one student, Millie, I think you.
Okay.
SATs, we're starting to look.
Good luck tomorrow. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amelia.
Take care.
Okay, student services. Questions? Okay, moving on, any questions on athletics, just with their activities? Brandon? Okay. Finally, superintendent of schools, any questions for Janice about report?
Their last one, somebody's gotta ask her something about it.
I'll provide something. Chris Grodnick's coming in tomorrow. We've got appointments at high school and Goodwin to have administrators introduce him to staff. And I'm looking forward to spending with him. So,
And lovely statement at the end of your report.
thank you. Yes, okay, from the heart.
Okay, so, let's do our board committee reports, please, we'll start with the budget and fiscal. Rena?
Well, aside from the mention tonight, nothing has happened since we got approved. So the next thing for our budget is the town referendum sometime in May, where the town gets to vote. And hopefully approve it.
Prior to that, the annual town budget meeting
Right, yeah,
that adjourns to referendum.
thank you very much for clarifying that.
Okay,
Kate is looking for proposals for their conference in November. I submitted one on student representatives to Board of Education.
facilities.
We'll be meeting next April 18th.
Hey, I'm gonna do a quick little update for Learn. I was on their website. I just wanted to note that, Goodwin University is separating from Learn as of June 3rd, 2024. So,
Who's separating from one?
Goodwin University.
It's the high school / university campus in East Hartford.
Okay.
They might have all 4 grades this year, I don't know, but, yeah, they've made some moves to be separate.
So I'm gonna try to go to a meeting next month. Future planning.
No further updates on that.
Demographics,
We have not had a meeting.
Karen, personnel.
Well, personnel is very busy this year.
Thankfully quiet, so I think that through the end of the year will be quiet, thank you.
I just have one question about that. I was asked by our, dare I say, HR department, so Pam and Michelle, if we have, if the hiring agency has any of the documentation record checks, we right now from the new superintendent have an empty personnel folder, and that's not typical for us. So if we could get hold of whatever there is that exists, that would be great.
Policy.
Nothing scheduled at this moment.
But there is a third phase of policy sitting in the superintendent's desk. So when you get around to it.
When the superintendent-
And I do not have a chairman's report.
Okay.
Okay. So at this time, let me see what time it is right now. It's 8:20. So I am looking for a motion to go in executive session for purposes of custodian contract and for strategy negotiations with respect to pending claims, pending litigation.
You want to invite?
And I'm gonna invite Dr. Krista Bachman, Superintendent Jennifer Joe, Carl Fortuna, Selectman Pamela Storti. Okay. All those in favor of,
Would you be willing to stay?
and Brendan Saunders.
So sorry, I heard Steve made the motion. Do we have a second for that?
Second.
We have Kelly. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's take a quick, like, 2-minute break and we'll come right back.
Thank you, administrators.
Thank you.
Bye, Krista, thank you.
Back.
Okay, it's 9:54. Coming out of executive session and looking for a motion here.
Motion to approve the 2024 through 2027 agreement between the OSBOE for the custodians union as presented.
Thanks. Second by Eileen. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Before we adjourn, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
At least I'm here.
Yeah, you are so welcome. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for hiring me. I saw Mario Gabri today. He was the best hire ever. He goes, he said, thanks for joining us. I said, thanks for hiring me. All those years ago.
Okay, looking for a motion to adjourn.
The chair.
So.
Second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye, motion to adjourn.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah.